From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
Talk to us about the role of vaccinations in these factory farms.
Well, my answer is going to change, and I'm glad we're on the Weston A. Price site because Dr. Tom Cowan has really done an enormous service to us, even though it's disrupting, because he's pretty much asking people, prove to me that there is such a thing as a virus. There's a doctor in Germany, he's a biochemist, he's asking people, he said, I'll give you 100,000 euro reward if all you do is just show me one study where they've actually isolated a virus. So this is really interesting. He's had that reward out there for 3 years. Nobody's claimed it. Nobody can prove that they've isolated a virus.
Wow.
So they're called the no virus sect of medicine now, and they're shunned. And as you probably know, Dr. Tom Cowan had to surrender his medical license because of his beliefs. He believes that humans are biologically alive, that they're energetically alive, which, by the way, back to that question about eating factory meat has bad energy in it, from not from a chemical sense, but from the energy that's put into it in that god-awful situation. They only have one good day of their life, and that's the day they're killed to relieve them from the torture. So is that the energy you want to put in your body? And again, that mainly is true for those of us that believe that food has energy in it, even if it's a carrot or a head of lettuce, if it's water, any liquid, it has the energy of the person that raised it or the person that cooked it or the surroundings. So that's another reason. We did this with Thousand Hills when we first started in 2002. Our message was save the planet and enjoy doing it. In other words, this talk about the pollution, the loss of water, the loss of everything. It didn't sell grass-fed beef. It was not. Okay, so we said, well, grass-fed beef has a different pH. It's not a pH that deadly pathogens grow in. So you will never see salmonella, listeria, all the deadly pathogens in this type of meat. I suppose you could almost make it happen, but you'd really have to work at it. Same is true of raw milk, which is a whole other topic that we've talked about a lot. But we thought, well, the health part didn't sell. Okay, so we thought, well, let's sell grass-fed beef based on the fact that the fat in it is omega-3 fat, the good fat, the anti-inflammatory fat, whereas factory pork or beef or chicken or egg is eating a lot of seed oil. So they have omega-6 oil, which is the inflammatory fat that's in the meat. So we thought, well, why don't you not get a heart attack or a stroke? Why don't you eat this meat? Because it's full of omega-3 fat. And I'm not doing as great a job as we did with marketing then. It still didn't sell. Do you know what sold it?
I happen to know, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we each of us that worked there, was only 5 of us, but we each got a little grill and an apron and a cowboy hat. And we went to all the food co-ops and the health food stores. And we had our little grill there, and we were grilling hamburger or steak. Would you like to try some 100% grass-fed beef? And, that also, there's kind of a barter system agreement that if they take your sample, you have, it's 10 seconds, 30 seconds to say something. But what happens is when you put it in their mouth, the first word that comes out of their mouth almost universally is, wow. And then it jumps in the grocery cart, believe me. And then the second word that came, or sentence, anybody over about 50, they would say, oh, I remember when beef used to taste good. Now beef tastes like ketchup or Heinz 57 because it has no flavor, no good flavor. And pork tastes like what they're walking around in the confinement facility. So flavor really sells the beef. And again, it's funny when you're in a grocery store demonstrating grass-fed beef because they'll be pushing their cart. And it's really an interesting hobby. If you just go to any grocery store or supermarket and see what people are pushing around their cart and then what they look like.
Oh, interesting.
We are what we eat. And a lot of times there'd be like 5 pounds of garbage hamburger in their cart, and they go, this is not for me. My husband's family, I'm having an in-law gathering, and they don't care what they eat, so they're going to eat it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, people get very defensive when you look into their grocery cart, like, oh, you got 15 pounds ice cream in there. And,
Right, right. It's like looking in their bank account. They feel their privacy has been violated.
but
Well,
it
so
happens to taste good. Good grass-fed beef happens
yes.
to taste really good. It also rings your bell. And I've cooked thousands of steaks for guys, tens of thousands. And you give a guy that would normally eat a 32 or 42 ounce steak at Ruth Chris Steakhouse and then ask for dessert. You give him an 8 to 12 ounce ribeye or New York strip that's grass fed. They push away from the table. It's like, God, I feel great. I'm full, and it's because it rings your bell. It's got all that satisfaction in it with all the minerals and vitamins and nutrients. Your body recognizes good food. So
That's
there's a lot of
amazing.
reasons on both sides. There's a lot of reasons why people, I can't afford all that organic food. We have to eat. We clip coupons. And do you have a cell phone? Yeah, I have a cell phone. Do you have cable TV? Yeah, I have that. So again, it's like, where are you spending your money?
Absolutely.
And the phrase that we used to use was, would you rather pay your farmer or your doctor? So, but I know you want to talk about vaccine, and I do too, because that is a bell ringer for getting people's attention.
Mhm.
Right now, frankly, I was pleasantly shocked at how many people were reacting negatively to the news that came out that there's mRNA vaccine available for livestock, because they've already demonstrated that if you give it to an individual, it's already in the milk the next day. So in humans, so the babies are getting it. They're getting the lipid nanoparticles. They're getting these adjuvants and things that are in this vaccine, even though they didn't eat it themselves. And the industry always pushing that edge. They're inventing aerosol vaccines, so you don't even have to get jabbed. You
Oh no.
or you put it in the water, and everybody's vaccinated. That's what they want, especially for poultry operations. And
Mm.
poultry operations are very similar to what I said about the pigs. They're highly confined. You see these pictures of, it's just wall to wall chickens or turkeys or ducks, and then they can't figure out why they're getting avian flu. I quit clipping articles about avian flu, what it was costing the government and people and farmers. It's in the hundreds, it's in the billions of dollars. Because what they do, if you test positive for avian flu, guess what? The next step is they kill everything.
Wiping it out. Yeah, wiping them out. Oh, it's so
It's
sad.
genocide. It's absolute criminal, but they will wipe out every animal you have. And there was a while back ago, we had a guy named Mark Purdy. Do you remember Mark Purdy?
Uh-uh.
You can't interview him now because he's in heaven, but he died at 42. He's a dairy farmer in England. And he was the guy that was the whistleblower about what people call mad cow disease. Yes.
Mhm.
He knew that it was not contagious, but he couldn't prove it. So he went about his life, because this guy had 2 times that the government agents came out and machine gunned his whole dairy herd in front of him and his wife and children.
Oh
That was
no.
for foot and mouth disease. One of his neighbors had foot and mouth in their cattle, so anybody that was adjacent to that farm had to exterminate all their animals. So that was hideous, and that permanently, that was PTSD for him. It was
Mhm.
permanently scarred him. Well, then when this BSE came out, the same thing happened. He had his whole herd exterminated because of the fear of BSE. So he went on a rampage. He went, all you might say, insane, or he actually got sane, and he
Mhm.
proved that the prion diseases are not an infectious agent, but it's an environmental disease.
Mm.
And in his particular world, where the path of the supersonic, the SST from Paris to London, that thing was supersonic. So it was a sonic boom. And he found out that the sonic boom triggered a reaction in the brain where they're storing certain elements in the brain. And when there's certain things like a sonic boom will trigger it and it blows holes in your brain. fungiform encephalopathy. And the same is true of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in humans, which is human mad cow, or all the other prion diseases. Now we have chronic wasting in our deer herds. We have scrapie in sheep. These are prion diseases. It's been proven that mRNA vaccine triggers prion diseases too.
Wow.
It's way beyond that. And then earlier in Europe, they had a fear of this foot and mouth disease. So they gave everybody an organophosphate, Fosmet, which is organic phosphate is an insecticide. It's a wormer. And they were afraid of the germ. So they gave it at least double amount. And when they use Fosmet, they pour it down the back of the animal. It's a pour-on right down the spine. Well, what's right under the skin on this point? The spine, the spinal cord. And that Fosmet was changing the chemical makeup of the brain and nerves. And it turned it into basically a battery where the energy, the electrical energy that all nervous systems have was stored. And then certain things like the sonic boom is just one example of several things that explode that battery and you get these releases. So that's a whole nother deal related though to the same thing. And again, here we are again with things that trigger it. The avian flu people say, oh yeah, well the wild birds are carrying it. They don't get sick from it, but they're carrying it. So we have to keep the wild birds out of our farm. So they're shooting, they're poisoning, they're killing these wild birds because that's the source of this pathogen.
Wow. Well, this sounds oddly familiar to me because during COVID, they were saying it's all the unvaccinated people that are making everyone else sick, and they're the ones carrying it, even though, what do they call it? Like the, non-symptomatic carrier. And I was like, or asymptomatic carrier. I thought, that's so insane. It's so illogical that a person can have something and spread it, though they have no effect on themselves. It's just kind of reverse psychology or something, weird way of looking at it.
People love that one because it enables them to, get away from the fact that I would say, I don't want it, so I don't want to get it, and it's my health, so therefore, see ya. No, they say, well, yeah, but you're making your family and your neighbors vulnerable because of your selfish choice. And if you love other humanity, you will get jabbed. So it's a great sales pitch for them.
It is. But so going back to the livestock, I do have many people in my circles who are concerned that they don't want to consume meat that has been given an mRNA vaccine. So how common is it? And is it common among regenerative farmers, let's say?
Okay, the first answer is a cumulative answer from Tom Cowan and the other people that I respect, Andy Kaufman and others, is we don't know how common it is because it's a well-kept secret. We know for sure that there are swine vaccines that are mRNA with the lipid nanoparticles and all the other problems. Those are for sure that they exist. How common it is, we don't know. They want this aerosol vaccine very badly for the poultry industry, especially. But there's a very easy way to make sure that the meat you're eating doesn't have mRNA vaccine in it. Ask the farmer and find out if they use any vaccine. Because our 60 producers, we might have one or two newcomers that haven't been able to elevate their mentality to the position where we don't need no stinking vaccines, of any kind. And all the producers I work with, like I say, with one or two exceptions, don't use any vaccine, they don't use any chemical warmers, and they don't use any antibiotics. Why? They don't need them. They have healthy herds based on health from a healthy immune system. And that means they have to change pretty much everything. They have to mineralize their animals. They have to watch out for crowding. They have to watch out for mold mycotoxin that might be in the feed. They have to have their water tested because most rural water now is contaminated, polluted with nitrates. And that's a very bad situation from, again, this pollution from feedlots or from farmers that overdo it with nitrogen on their corn and beans.